I think this all moved pretty quickly. She's probably like just on her honeymoon, just getting settled. And if Leslie Nielsen is to be believed, he's probably, being the umpire at a World Series game or something going wrong.
Farting up.
Or he's
Hanging out with O.J. Simpson right before it was a real bad time to hang out with O.J. Simpson.
dead and loving it.
She married Dracula. He's not Frank Drebin, he's Dracula. Where was that show?
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about The Golden Palace. The Golden Palace went 24 episodes with only one season on CBS. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Pilot, originally airing September 18th, 1992. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, Nick, Gordo, Joe, and Ferg. What's going on, guys?
Heyo.
Big in the kitchen does not excite me, Rose, I do declare.
Before anything, I just want to say happy 2-year anniversary, guys. This is our 2-year anniversary episode.
It does not feel like 2 years.
It really doesn't.
No.
I guess we can reflect on it a second because we did a 100-year episode. We did like a special. We're not going to do anything for 2 years because it's so close.
100 episode special, not a 100-year episode special.
Oh, yeah,
I feel like I don't know if we have that.
Would be like
in
the Golden Girls.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. So 100 episodes. We did a bonus episode, which you could find back in the episodes, and it's available on YouTube. And again, just quick reminder, S1E1pod.com. You can find all the links to our socials and everywhere you can listen to us or watch us, anything like that. But yeah, 2 years, it's only like 5 episodes later, so it didn't make sense to do anything too big for it. But I think we should acknowledge that. It's a pretty big accomplishment.
It's a good milestone. They say most people don't make it past 50 episodes in a podcast, and that could be people who don't even go weekly. So the fact that we are, over 100, 2 years deep, consistent, impressed. And if you know us, it's very impressive.
Yeah, I think if you would have asked any one of us before this started if we thought we'd still be doing it in 2 years, I'm not sure it would have been a unanimous yes.
I don't think we would have started.
That's also true.
The goal was 100 episodes in my brain. I'm like, can we just make it to 100? Because it seemed like a really good benchmark. And now it's like, now you think like double that, let's keep going to the next one. It's almost like when you're, if you're on a treadmill sometimes and you're telling yourself, all right, I'll stop at this mile. I'll stop. You got to keep you don't look at the long goal sometimes. You just set benchmarks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in any event, for the 2 years, we're kind of debating between a couple shows. Because for our 1 year, we did Cavemen, which is kind of an ongoing joke throughout the year. And then we did Cavemen. This one we were torn between two, and it was going to be either The Golden Palace or Bob Hart Abishola, I think, were the ones that got the most consistently mentioned throughout the year. And we landed on this one for reasons that aren't coming true anymore, so shame on you guys.
I would like to say that I'm mad at the fine folks at the Internet Movie Database who incorrectly list Golden Palace's pilot as having Bobcat Goldthwait in it. Anybody can go on right now and look at the IMDb page. That's what it says. And when I watched Golden Palace the first time, I watched every episode in one long chunk. I watched the whole series, or the one season of it, on a day when I was recovering from a COVID booster shot. So I couldn't remember in my head. I was like, it was early. It must have been the first episode. Why would it be listed wrong on IMDb? So this whole thing was so that Jay would finally do his goddamn Bobcat Goldthwait impersonation.
It's okay. He's going to do it anyway because the fans want it, and Jay loves the fans. He's not going to let the fans down, right?
Yeah, he's going to do it.
Sorry, fans. I'm putting that one behind a paywall, so you can hit me up privately and send me your monies.
What a cunt.
Yeah. But, Golden Palace. Golden Palace is obviously a spin-off of the Golden Girls. And it was one of those spin-offs that this was in the works before Golden Girls was even over. Because I think it was only like 2 months had passed after the final episode before this one premiered.
This would have been Golden Girls season 8. Like, it's the same time frame.
And additionally, so basically what happens is after the final season of Golden Girls, B. Arthur leaves. It's the end of the show, so, rightfully so, they all leave. But that was a big point, was she didn't want to continue on with the show anymore. They get the other 3 girls, and they give them the spin-off show, and they kind of just change the location a little bit. And we'll get into the details as we go along. And they're desperately trying to get B. Arthur back. to the point where they had even offered her to come back for a second and third season where they were going to condense the episode length per season. And if she came back, there was going to be a season called Golden Palace. The following season was just going to be the Golden Girls again with like the next season number. That's how they were going to treat it.
It's always weird when that happens. All in the Family does that because for a while, All in the Family turns into Archie Bunker's Place. Like there's no changeover. It's just the same show, but Archie buys a bar and Edith dies, and they're like, well, fuck it. It's got a different name now, but it's the same show.
Joe, I imagine, would be the best person for this. Can you give us a quick synopsis of like the last episode of Golden Girls? Because I don't remember the finale of it. So how does it lead into Golden Palace?
So the whole last episode is a 2-part. It's B. Arthur's getting married to Leslie Nielsen, and they do
what a funny
they
couple.
do the wedding at
Good
the house,
choice.
and like everybody's there, and a bunch of old characters come back, like Stan. Dorothy's ex-husband is there. Like everybody kind of comes in, and then it sort of ends on the note where they're like, it's gonna be weird, but we'll still be together. Like we're never gonna not be friends. And there's like talk about selling the house a little bit because Blanche is like, I'm gonna sell the house, and then everyone gets sort of scared and confused, and they're like, well, we'll just stay together. So it kind of makes sense that when you come into the pilot of this, they have sold the house, but they are sticking together.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of assumed Dorothy just died on the show.
No, she actually shows up on in an episode of Golden Palace later on too. Not to get ahead.
It was just the way they mentioned her. They were like, if Dorothy were here, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, the mother says, Dorothy's gone. But, like, that choice of wording, like, I was like, oh, did she die?
You know what it is? If I was B. Arthur, though, and you look at the fact that her intention was to end with that last season, and there was finality to her character, you know? So she gets married and moves. So it just makes sense to be done with it. And then, you know, it's tough when shows are super successful and there's a lot of money involved, but there's a point where after X amount of episodes and seasons, you just want to get away and do something else. And that's kind of where she sat, and she didn't want to get back into this world.
Is that the reason why she didn't want to do it? Because I'm like really curious if they were really offering her that much money, why she would turn that down.
I think she just didn't want to do another, like, because you do again, remember shows like this were 20 to 25 episodes. Most of your year is just work until you have the summer off. So I think that people just think it's a grind. As you're older too, probably you've like been acting, and she did plenty of shows. I mean, Maude was before this.
She's an older woman. She's successful. She has money. Like, what's left to prove? Like, just leave artistically when you think is best instead of running it into the ground.
This is the same thing we always say, and this is a nonpartisan comment, but I don't understand why anybody as old as anybody who's running for president would want to be president on either side. We're like, you've got $1 billion and you're old. Just fucking relax, man. And I'm sure that's what she wanted to do.
I wish that they all followed suit and retired.
Really? I want to go out on a limb here. I think Golden Palace, as somebody who's seen the whole series, better show. I prefer Golden Palace.
I'm not going to get into it.
We'll get into it as we go along. A couple things I did want to bring up before we get into the nuts and bolts of the episode. This pilot premiered 27.2 million viewers.
That's pretty big.
That's insane. That is insane. I mean, that shows you how successful Golden Girls was.
Does Monday Night Football now even get that many viewers?
Nowadays, I don't have those numbers up to think about it in perspective, but
I'd imagine.
Because that's like a wild amount of people to watch a TV show.
When we talk, you know, obviously we've mentioned it a million times. We're all wrestling fans, right? And then like you have a show like Monday Night Raw or SmackDown, and a super good episode now hits 2 million.
So
that's a globally known commodity now.
It's not even a Monday Night Football. The most watched game, I don't know. Yeah, this year for the NFL was the Cowboys versus the Giants on Thanksgiving Day. And that was 42.1 million people watched that. So, but I mean, that's a day where there's literally nothing to do but eat and watch football.
The whole world has it on.
That's the point of that whole day, yeah.
Right, so everybody turns it on. So I don't think that's a really good number.
Yeah,
but
like you don't even really watch.
Yeah, even halving that, like this says Monday Night Football averages 14.1 million.
Right,
so
that's
there
half.
You go.
Yeah.
How many people
Raw's
watch
old numbers?
Right. I was gonna say that's reminiscent to like how many people watched the season finale of MASH, or the series finale of MASH?
That was a big one. That's
a
like
pretty big one too.
That's
Yeah.
that's like a huge.
But I mean, how many people did it though?
I forgot about MASH, but
Seinfeld.
Cheers had 93 million viewers for the finale.
Oh,
which is
okay.
fucking silly. That's a
Pretty
third
much
of the
every
U.S.
single
population.
person, including babies, that were near a TV in the entire country.
Yeah, that's fucking wild.
Man, I try to pull up a nice stat about how many people watched Golden Palace and you guys just eclipsed it with all the bigger things that people watch. Oh, yeah?
I'm still saying it's a huge number. I mean, that's wild for a season premiere. Yeah. But again, I also say you don't really consider it to be a series premiere when it really is.
That's just a continuation.
It's tough. Yeah. So even like on our end where we, it's pilot episodes of sitcoms and there's a spinoff, but the way that the spinoff works compared to other ones, it's so weird because we can't pretend we don't know anything about the Golden Girls, right? Because that's not the expectation.
That was supposed to. I was going to bring this up.
This cheating.
This is. I agree. This is. I think just over the line as far as cheating goes. This is close. This is not enough of its own show to really count as a spinoff. Even though, yeah, technically it's a spinoff. It's.
You know what the main clue is? They didn't even change the fucking theme song.
We'll get into that in a second.
We'll talk about that. They certainly changed the theme song.
They remixed it.
I agree with Ferg. Yeah. I don't think this should have flopped.
The problem is I don't think this show. We'll get into it. I don't want to spoil too much as we get along. But yeah, this show would be very different to watch if you had never seen an episode of Golden Girls. It'd be a really tough thing to walk into blind.
Why is that old lady so horny?
Well, I'm sure you'd have the same
old.
question
She's middle-aged.
as you start getting into the first one.
I do declare.
She's middle-aged.
The other numbers I want to bring up before we get into the episode itself, because we always intend to do this. IMDb rates the show as a whole 7.2. Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes 78%. No audience score. Not enough people rated, but the critics give it 78%.
The show as a whole, because when I checked the episode itself, it had nothing.
Yeah, the show as a whole.
Okay. So by the Gordo meter, that's only 22.
Yeah.
But it's going to be. Hashtag Gordo meter.
I don't think anyone's going to follow that one, bud.
All you would be doing is flipping the number. It's not
that's listen, that's all it takes, bro. Starts with 1, and it will be a million.
To do what? Like, what's the desired outcome? That everybody knows you're dumb?
Well, he said he's going to be a millionaire, Nick. Let's hear how he's going to monetize this wonderful idea.
Gordo's just trying to become a brand behind our backs.
My brand!
No, I'm just saying that
S1 Industries.
It's the name of our LLP, our real name. No, it just doesn't. Because the Rotten Tomatoes, they're not throwing 78% of the tomatoes.
We get why you don't understand it, but still.
I think you can do it because Rotten Tomatoes, when we were kids, it was a joke. It was a joke website, and now people take it serious. So you be a joke now. 10 years from now, it'll be like the Gordo meter.
And now Gordo's a joke, and maybe in 10 years we'll take him serious. So to get into the actual episode, because you already brought it up, it starts with the actual theme song, which is it's the same theme, but it's a new version. It's
visually different, but to the ears.
Visually different to the ears?
But no, but to the ears, it's the same.
Gordo, that's a phenomenal Nick impression you just did.
You didn't let me finish the fucking sentence.
Speaking of impressions, Jay, how's your Bobcat Goldthwait impression?
We'll never know at this point because you guys messed up in a golden opportunity to make me do it.
All right, I will give up my S1E1 championship by picking a show that I know won't win.
I don't care about your fictitious championship.
I'm just saying, I know of friggin' animated shows that he's done, which wouldn't pass, but I will choose them as my week, knowing that they won't pass, to give up my flawless title.
We'll cross
so
that bridge.
You have to do that impression.
As it comes, we'll have to cross that bridge. But I do want to bring up this. We're talking about the intro right now. I think it's listed as the reggaeton version, but it's not reggaeton.
It's not reggaeton. But they were definitely in a boardroom. They were like, this song is still going to work, but what is it missing? I know, fucking bongo drums. Let's add some bongo drums to this. Let's just make it better. It's the island
version, and it's a male singer this time.
To go back to what Nick was saying, and I know what he was saying, is I didn't hear a difference because I was like, I just heard the words.
Right. Well, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same song.
I think that's what he was trying to say.
Yeah, it's so iconic, and it's not different enough to... Like, if you weren't watching the TV and that came on and you went and looked at the TV, you'd be surprised that it wasn't the Golden Girls.
Yeah. It's that the tempo's a little off. That threw me more than the other instruments and the male voice. Like, the tempo itself changes, and that's what catches me.
But it ain't the music that matters. It's the thank you for being a friend.
Right.
But then they do like a weird reprise too, because it's like, thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. You're like, wait, what the fuck was that?
I just, in that moment, right off the bat, I'm kind of like, be your own show. I didn't like that they used the same.
Yeah, it should have been a new theme.
I agree.
Strike
But
one.
they smartly, though, kept all the interstitial music. So when you like come out of the theme song and when they go from scene to scene.
Here's the thing. I didn't like that either. That's the first thing
I liked
we
that.
The very first thing we get after that is the exterior shot of the classic Golden Girls house. And we're getting that music, the classic like music that you're used to hearing in every episode. And only in, the house now has a for sale sign in front of it with the sold thing over it. Again, I was like, you need to change something. Like they were just so ready to just go on to this next. It was just a new episode of Golden Girls. They didn't change anything about it.
Well, they eventually get a different set.
Yes, because it's the final time that we see that the house is here. So they do close the doors on that. We get inside.
I think that's a good idea to show the house and to explain what's happening.
Yeah, I'm okay
because
with
you
that.
don't know. They don't mention the hotel thing in the last episode of Golden Girls. So you have to
Right.
break down what's happening in the beginning of this one.
I would have. I think it's tough, right? Because we're not living in the moment. This isn't 1992. But I think that would have been better for people to see if there was a year gap and then the show came out and then we kind of revisit, we get back into that world and then they kind of take us on the journey.
I have a question. Did Rue McClanahan lose all her money on the show? Her character.
It sounded like she dumped all her money into this hotel.
Yeah,
she was loaded. She was super rich in the episode we watched, and now in this one she seems to be struggling for money. So that she
I
had
would
to sell the
assume-
house to buy this place.
Well, she always
purchasing a
works
hotel.
throughout the show too, though. She's not just resting on her laurels. So she has money, but she needs to work still.
Well,
'Cause she
I would
works at a
also-
museum for most of the show, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Purchasing a hotel is a mighty big expense.
And it's a big hotel in Miami, and this is Miami post the big boom of everything in the 80s, so it's expensive property. Has everybody here been to Miami? I forgot if we talked about this in Golden
We
Girls.
did. We
We've all
talked
been
about
to
it when we
Miami.
did
Yeah.
Golden Girls. Yeah.
Briefly.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah, a couple times.
I got gas in Miami. That's
You get gas
gas
everywhere,
everywhere.
Cordell.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what'd you
What'd you
eat?
eat?
nothing. I literally got gas for my vehicle.
Too much beans.
One of those good
So,
pressed
yeah,
sandwiches.
Gordo's just driving through Florida.
I was going to the Keys.
Okay, I was
And
going to
I had
say,
to-
because when you're in Miami, you're pretty much at the end
Not
of the
the
state.
cheese, Gordo. The keys.
Milo.
But yeah, so we're in
yeah.
the living room scene, which is an iconic set, so we're used to seeing that. Only it's pretty gutted at this point. There's the couch, just about nothing else in there. We see movers moving things back and forth. And one of the first things we see is Sophia chasing down one of those movers, saying to be careful with her husband's ashes. But it turns out that it was just a vase full of hard candy. And I was like, how big was her husband? Because this wasn't like a vase that could fool you. It was gigantic. So it was
Yeah.
clearly not that.
Maybe it was before they did the crematoriums right, and you kind of get back a lot of pieces.
They were low on set pieces, so they're like, this one's fine. Don't worry about it.
They also go heavy on the candy jokes in the first 5 minutes here.
I was
Right?
gonna say that too.
One of them's funny.
And
It
then
wasn't.
as the movers continue going, you see Blanche's bed get moved out, and Rose and Sophia are kind of talking about it. The whole if beds could talk.
Goodbye, Blanche's bed.
Sophia's like, it would get laryngitis. And Blanche
Yeah.
heads in from outside at that same time. And she's noting that the kids outside all want to get a look at her bed because, it's probably pretty legendary. She's like, oh, nights it has known. And she starts going over everybody she's fucked, who is basically everybody under the sun. Joe, were you feverishly masturbating at this point?
I wouldn't say
No, but
feverishly.
You know
but-
he
No,
was at the
later
pool
on.
boy scene.
Yeah, it's the pool man. They make a good distinction to call him pool man, I noticed.
Does anyone else think just in this first scene they're trying too hard?
Maybe.
I feel like they wanted to be
I
like,
got that.
hey, it's still the Golden Girls. Look, we have all our best hits, and they throw them all at once, times 10.
How long after the Golden Girls ended did this premiere? Was it
like 2 months. It was like 2
Okay.
or 3
It was
months.
the next season.
Yeah.
I would say this, Ferg, because we've covered the Golden Girls, and if you guys haven't listened to that episode, we did it not that long ago, probably a few months back. You can go back and listen to that. But remembering that episode, you saw a lot of those same tropes, right? You saw the Blanche setting up a date at her husband's funeral, and you saw some of the crazy things Rose would say, and the same things with Sophia. So it's not like they're really it was kind of that extreme all the time.
I don't think it was that like this extreme though. I think they were trying to reassure the audience that hey, Maud's not back, but Dorothy's not back, but hey, we're still here.
Maud.
Now it's tough to say this, right? Because having not watched the end or the final season of Golden Girls before this, as we know, characters evolve and change a little bit.
Yeah.
So is it that they're acting wildly different, or is it that's just where the characters were, 7-8 years later?
That's the thing. The last episode I watched was that pilot. So
Right.
I don't know what's happened throughout the show until like this point.
Yeah. And here, while they're all in the living room together, Rose is starting to have like this panic attack because the reality of moving out is starting to sink in. And she mentions like, and this is to buy a hotel. So that's when they sneak in the premise of this whole show is that they're selling the house. They bought a hotel. They're going to move over there. And somehow to get her to calm down, they find a paper bag in the middle of this empty house for her to breathe into. Turns out also full of candy. So there's candy and everything. So,
See, I think it would have been funnier if that ended up being where the ashes were.
She blows into it and a bunch of ashes shoot out her face.
Yeah.
a little gross, but sure.
No, but the way they talked about the hotel, that's why I was asking about the finale of Golden Girls, because it sounded like that the hotel idea maybe spawned at the end of Golden Girls, and then they just picked it up for Golden Palace. But it sounds like they never talked about this hotel thing.
Yeah, I don't think there was any seeds.
They don't, yeah.
And it just sounded like we should have known already that was the deal.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, I
That's
think
a fair point.
this was one of those things where I think they just scrambled. I think they probably tried to get B. Arthur to stay, and when they finally accepted that she wasn't, they had to pivot, and they just went with this.
I think I liked it better when Newhart did it.
From the Bob Newhart show to Newhart?
Yeah. I know it's not an actual continuation. That was just my little joke. But
Because they run a large
he owns an
hotel.
inn and Newhart.
Yeah.
Well, since you brought him up, actually, I'll mention this. That was part of the... They made like a competitive, like to go against TGIF, CBS that is. So CBS put this show with Bob, which is Bob Newhart's third show that I brought up in the past.
Yeah, the
And
90s one.
They put the two of those together with Major Dad and Designing Women. And this was supposed to be their competitive to go against TGIF. And then after this season, Golden Palace, Major Dad, and Designing Women were all canceled. So like their elite top shows that they thought were going to go against NBC like failed miserably.
By the way, Major Dad is a
Executive should have
definite
been
coming
canceled,
soon.
aka fired. Like these are what you picked to go up against TGIF.
I actually watched the pilot of Major Dad not that long ago.
Is it a show you think we'll cover soon enough?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll hold those comments in.
But we can't do Designing Women, which is the actual show where they constantly go, I do declare.
And Blanche trying to calm down. Rose is telling her, you're not ruining your life, you're just changing it, which I actually thought was good advice and a nice line. And then Rose is like, we don't know how to run a hotel. And Blanche is like, well, it's no different than, having this house. We have this house that we run and people are coming and going all the time. And Sophia's like, yeah, your room.
They keep going hard on them.
It's like Golden Girls, like, in that thing, they're like young old ladies, so it's like okay, but now they're old ladies, so their sex jokes is just gross to me now.
Again, I stand by. Rue McClanahan's like 58 here.
No,
She's
looks
not an old lady.
A lot old.
Oh, see, I think she looks younger than I remember her looking.
Look
Maybe
again.
it's the way it was shot.
We're older too, which is probably a big factor. You're mostly used to seeing her when we were young, and there's like a
No, I'm
near
comparing
50-year age gap, and now that we're in our late 30s, you're only looking at someone who's like 20 years older than you, so it's like a different scope.
No, I'm comparing the pilot.
Oh, no, I know
to
what you're
Golden.
saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying as far as Gordo's. No, to me, she's a little too old. That's not,
No old hate. Don't get me wrong.
not my personal preference.
She's not old. It's not old age. She's 57. Are you trying to tell me if you were at a bar and Rue McClanahan at 57 was like, you wouldn't
No,
go?
because I kept looking at her wrinkly chest and getting turned off in this
come
episode.
on.
Two completely
You and I were
different
looking at the same
outcomes.
thing with different results.
This scene closes with the three women on the couch together being lifted up by the movers and taken out as they're all sitting on it, and I thought that was a little cartoony.
This is where the show started to lose me. I was like, what? Why would they do that?
Yeah, that's not realistic enough for a show like this.
Guys,
Like-
that's just a meta way for them to say it's time to move on.
I get it. It was
But
just
there's
very
no, like, let's go,
sketch
boys,
comedy.
and they all just pick them up without warning. These are all old ladies. What if they fell off and broke their hips?
Yeah, it's a little dangerous with a few old ladies and one young lady to go and do something like that.
And
Middle
one
lady.
lady.
But again, yeah, if you tripped, you don't have insurance. Like, what kind of insurance does this moving company have? Like, what? Imagine going back to the boss and be like, I think we have a lawsuit. Like, what happened? Like, I dumped 3 of the people who were moving 5 feet onto the ground. They're all in the hospital. Why did that
Well,
happen?
boss, we had to
picked
move
them
the
all
couch,
up
and they
on
wouldn't
the
get off the
couch.
couch.
I don't understand. You told us to move the furniture. We moved the furniture.
In this
All the women in
scenario, the boss is the baby from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
My stogie.
But yeah, so now we hit this new scene, and this is when we go to the hotel for the first time, and we meet Roland and Oliver. Roland's played by Don Cheadle, so at the time, not a big get, but looking back, it's a big get.
Well, he was in Colors a couple years before this, which is a huge movie.
But he's not
The year
as
after
big
this,
as-
he's in Meteor Man.
Yeah, but
Meteor Man, he's fantastic in.
He's
But
great
to
in Meteor
look
Man.
to look back at now Don Cheadle, who's a A-list celebrity, it's a very different time. He's the manager of the hotel, and Oliver's his foster son, who works there too. I was looking through that kid looks so familiar to me, and I think the only thing I know him from is Little Big League.
Oh,
He's
I
one of
think
the
you
friends in Little Big
You know
League,
him
yeah.
from the 90s, because every kid from the 90s just looked like him.
Yeah, but he was like
That moppy 90s haircut all kids had. It's like a little
Yeah.
shaggy long.
he's like a blonde kid. He has that long blondish, like not a like that middle part type of hair, not so much the bowl cut, but like all in that same realm.
I felt
That kid doesn't make it
JTT.
through the whole series either. It's only one season, and they write him off like halfway through.
good. He sucks.
Well, it's a good thing he's a foster kid.
Yeah, Gordo, thank you. I felt the scene right now had way too much like exposition. Like they both know that they're foster kid and foster parent. Why would the two of them be saying that to each other? Well, I am your foster dad.
Yeah, a lot of
Like,
shows are kind of
it's
victim
like-
of doing that,
yeah.
where they kind of explain through dialogue unnaturally stuff.
But it's unnecessary because there's new people coming into the hotel now, which is the 3 owners, and they could have explained that to them.
Once-
and then
once
we
she's
then we
there.
find out.
Well, the problem is that they do explain it because he gives the whole spiel to Blanche later on. So, like, yeah, you didn't have to have it here with Don Cheadle because you already have it later with Blanche, which makes more sense.
Yeah, because Oliver's worried that he's going to get kicked out because he's kind of working there, like kind of like as an underage kid, just helping around. But he's only doing that because his foster dad is the manager of this hotel. And Roland's telling him, like, oh, don't be worried about that. Like, you're with me. Roland's more nervous about his own job because they have the new owners coming in. He hears that they're like owners of a successful hotel chain. And then on top of it, they have 20 travel agents who are all going to be staying at the hotel this weekend, like at the same time, which is like for a travel agent convention, I guess is how it was explained.
Well, I mean, that's plausible. I mean, there's
Yeah.
plenty of
A
conventions.
convention.
Yeah, but like that's kind of a weird, like they're all kind of in competition with each other.
No,
No,
but those are
but you
things.
learn.
We have them at my work. I work at a convention center, everybody. So you just.
But like travel agents, I feel like that's
Yeah.
a competitive industry.
Yeah.
Well, they're coming from different parts of the country, though.
Yeah.
It's like when everybody meets up.
Okay, I guess that makes sense because you're not all in the same town. Okay, so I
Right,
guess
yeah.
that can make sense to me.
You share tricks of the trade and whatnot.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Learn how to sell. Maybe meet
No-
people in different, markets.
You know
Gordo,
what,
for a
like-
while you sort of ran a hotel. Does this ring
did
true
run
to
a
you at
hotel. It
all?
wasn't-
Did you have a little kept boy with you at all times, like Marlon Brando in
He didn't work.
Island of
though.
Dr. Moreau?
No, I did not have an Island Dr. Moreau. Mr.
Gordo was the
Tattoo.
kept kid.
I know. I was. What was the question?
Does this ring true to you in the operations of a small hotel?
What?
The episode
You're Vinny
about running a
Barbarino now?
small hotel.
Do you feel
Yes.
like the hotel aspects of the episode that we're seeing are relatable to actually knowing the industry?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. 100%. 100%. Especially as somebody who came in and started running a hotel who had no idea how to run a hotel. So, yeah.
And this closes with Oliver again wanting to be reassured that he'd be okay, when these new owners come in. And he says if there's not, it's on his head talking to Roland. Like, what is this, the curse of the lost boy? Get out of here. And something about that delivery I thought was really fun. And
He is
Oliver
so
Room's
good
on.
in this. The supporting cast of this show is very, very good.
Yeah, and they kept the cast pretty tight, which I liked as well. If I was to say there's some positives here. And this is when all the girls show up at the front desk, and Roland initially mistakes them for guests. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I only have room for one night, but then I have a convention coming in and you all have to leave. And they're like, do you have any idea who we are? And he's like, the Pointer Sisters? I was like, he's being a little rude to these, what he thinks are customers.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of...
Explains how this beachfront hotel is failing.
Yeah.
Also weird, like, I'm not trying to say, like, I do like that it was a not the pulse of the time kind of reference to mention the Pointer Sisters in 1993 or whatever. 1983, like, Neutron Dance, Beverly Hills Cop Pointer Sisters, like, is a funny reference. I kind of like that he threw a reference out there that was, like, 10 years
It is
apart.
a very dated reference, because I, on the line, got it. And I know people just a little younger aren't.
But I'm
Well, I
sure
guess,
for
though, it would've been-
93, though, it's not so out of the realm. People should be understanding it.
And is 93 the year where Jesse sings Pointer Sisters, I'm So Excited on the diet pills? It might be the same year.
Probably right around there. It might be a little earlier, but I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe the
Right,
early
not
90s
wrong.
were a bigger Pointer Sisters time than...
But then we find out there that they are the new owners, and then you quickly see him changing his tune. And he, like, very quick to, now he's starting to butter them up and be very friendly. Blanche asks to see the manager. Roland's like, I'm the manager. And then she basically just asks the same exact question 2 more times and doesn't seem to understand that he's in charge. And then he says, do you spend much time in hotels? And Sophia lets kind of like this, out.
She goes, oh!
And then,
She kind of makes the noise when you pull Santa Claus's beard in Miracle on 34th Street.
And then she doubles down when he asks if she has any experience. A lot of slutty Blanche jokes. I mean, I know it's a staple of the show. Ferg,
One
I
might
get where you're
argue
coming
too
from.
much.
Yeah, they do get into it a lot.
In this episode, I mean, I haven't seen any more of it, but like, I really do feel like they were trying to reassure the existing audience. Like, don't worry, she's still a whore.
I think you're
It's
right.
like they were trying to figure out how to write without what's her name there?
Dorothy.
Dorothy there. And they were like, well, what do we do without that? And they were just like, let's call Blanche a slut more often.
Yeah, they're like,
fill
let's
it with
just slut
that,
shame
yeah.
Blanche
Yeah.
more. But Dorothy did it a lot on the... It was usually Dorothy and Sophia who did it. So they just like they
Yeah.
double down because Dorothy's gone. They just like
True.
make more jokes for everybody else.
And that's the tricky part about doing a show like this, is that it was so grounded in the role of the 4 women. And then you remove not only one of the 4, but the main, like the first build star, take her out of it. And now you have to kind of reestablish these connections, and the dynamic's different, right? Like all the timing and everything is just has to be altered a little bit. And finding where you are in that is really difficult.
Why would Sophia stay with them and not go with her daughter?
Maybe she didn't want to move out of
She
Miami.
was like, yeah, but they were stuck with her because of Dorothy, right?
Right.
They mentioned it in the last episode. They do invite her to come move, but she wants to stay.
They
at
can't
least
stand
it's
each other
addressed.
either.
Yeah, because it's kind of weird, right? To be like, she was there. They all become friends, obviously, right? But she's there because she's one of those person's mother. And then that person leaves, and then you're kind of, it would make sense for her to move. And she tries to push it to make her come with them too, and it becomes like a big part of this episode, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
We also have Blanche bringing up this whole, how hard could it be running a hotel? We ran a house. And Roland gets really sarcastic with them again. Oh, you ran a house. It was one of those things where, again, I'm like, okay, you're being rude to them before you found out that they were your bosses. Now you know, and you're being rude all over again.
Yeah, he
Like,
flip-flops a lot. I don't get it.
it's like, you need to
For a
chill
guy
out,
trying to
dude.
keep his job.
Yeah, you're worried that you're going to lose your job, and like you're instantly jumping just because they don't have any experience in this field and probably shouldn't own this place
Yeah.
doesn't give you now permission to like be on top of them chest out. Like they're still
Oh, you
your
gotta get
boss.
Joe excited. Calm down. Being
Right.
on top of them,
I
bud.
do declare.
Yeah, just because, like, he's not a quarter owner. So
Yeah.
he can't be like, oh, that would make sense if he was like a silent business partner.
Yeah,
or
he has no
something.
say. They are very much
No.
his bosses.
Exactly.
So- and the phone rings. Roland picks up, and it's one of the guests who's been waiting for towels to be brought up to his room. And Roland's like, oh, no one's there yet? I sent someone up like 10 minutes ago. He's like, give him like 30 more seconds. And he's describing the guy who has to bring the towels up as a charming black man. So he's describing himself, hangs up the phone, and he says, 1 minute. And he grabs these towels and he sprints like full speed. Yeah. I was like very impressed with his speed in that scene when he runs up the stairs.
He goes quick.
But here's the thing that got me. You have a customer complaining and you're saying, oh, I can't believe, he obviously is the one who messed up. And he's now, I'll make sure that it happens right now. Why would you describe yourself as the person who got lost that got sent up there 10 minutes ago? Say, I will personally see to it that you get them. I'll go up there myself.
I guess that's a better way you could have gone.
He painted himself to be the idiot delivery guy.
And he could have been like, I'm going to fire that blonde woman or whatever. Or he could have, taken himself out of it.
Yeah, he described himself as the person who got lost, who got sent to bring these towels.
So I've done this before. I blamed a fake employee for not bringing things up and then said, I personally see to it. And then I brought it up myself.
And you don't describe the culprit as looking exactly like you, right?
No. If I know that there is another woman on, I'll be like, oh, I sent another guy. I sent my assistant.
Some tall guy who's seen Top Gun before was supposed to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, so a big Top Gun fan up there to do that. But no, I'd never describe myself. No, that's stupid.
The guy just beats the shit out of Tom Cruise that happens to be walking by. What'd I do?
Well, he said tall guy. That wouldn't qualify for Tom Cruise. That wouldn't be a
tall guy. That's true.
So now, once he leaves, Blanche kind of splits up the other girls and, sends Sophia to the kitchen to check out everything and says for Rose to check out the housekeepers. And now Blanche is alone at the front desk, and that's when Oliver comes back. And when she finds out that he's, working and staying there, she tells him she can't allow him to continue and has to, leave. But I was kind of like, why? You didn't even ask him any questions yet. You don't know any of the situations. Is it legal? Are you with someone? She's like, I'm sorry, you have to go.
I mean, she's not wrong. Why is there a child saying that he works at my now business that I own? That's a liability.
Fair, but ask a couple questions first. How are you working here? Are you in the books? Is there a reason you're here? Not just, no, you have to leave. And this is the point where we find out about Oliver's past. And his mom's a drunk, and the dad's in jail for manslaughter. And he's very upbeat about explaining his tragic past, but whatever.
I'm sorry, that's a little too, nail on the head, too. They named the little orphan kid Oliver.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, if you name your kid Oliver, are you just, dooming them to become an orphan? And we saw what happens to the orphans when they mess with the Warriors.
You know what's funny? I didn't even think of the name at the time, but that makes so much sense with the Oliver connection.
I mean, it's the quintessential orphan name, right? And I don't think I've ever met an Oliver before.
What about that time we met Oliver Platt together?
There was that time.
No, but again, I don't think I know anybody either.
I don't know. I don't know why it flagged to me this way, but it was just Blanche's adamant refusal for him to be able to stay there without asking any further questions. Just, I don't know. I thought that was weird to me.
She might want to know a little more about the scenario.
And then he starts trying to butter her up. And he's like, oh, I was hoping a woman as young as you could relate to my problem. And this is instantly kind of works on her. It distracts her at least until the phone rings and Oliver picks it up. And it's Sophia who wants Blanche to meet her over at the kitchen. And at that same time, Rose is returning to the main hallway to inform Blanche that there is no maid staff. They have no housekeepers. So now they're all heading into the kitchen together. And as they enter the kitchen, you see Sophia there with Chuy Castillos, who's the chef played by Cheech Marin. And he's trying to kick them all out of the kitchen. So Cheech, at this point, I mean, again, he's so famous from, at this point, Cheech and Chong, but he hasn't done Nash Bridges or anything yet. He's probably taken I'm sorry, I'm probably forgetting, but post Cheech and Chong, pre-Nash Bridges, he's floundering a little bit, right?
I wouldn't say floundering. He stars in Born in East LA, which is a pretty big movie. And he's popping up and doing stuff. And there's Cheech and Chong movies throughout the 80s. And he's always in stuff. And this is right around the same time, too, where he'd start working on all the Robert Rodriguez and Tarantino movies. Because in this pretty quick succession from here.
Dusk Till Dawn, yeah.
Yeah, Dusk Till Dawn, Desperado.
Yeah, I guess.
And Nash Bridges is probably 96 maybe? With Don Johnson from Miami Vice.
We'll get into some of the 96 lines in a second. It just, as he's playing this character, I felt like this was a little beneath him. And it just, I was trying to, in my head, justify why he would be on the show.
why Golden Girls was a successful show, correct?
Right.
Very successful.
Very successful.
So why wouldn't you want to link up with a very successful show?
I'm
I
with
guess
you,
it was the
Gordo.
way. I agree. It's the way the characters portrayed, at least in this episode, was a little too stereotypical.
Oh, I
Mexican.
agree. I agree
And-
about that, but I see why he wanted to be on here.
I will say, though, too, as somebody who's seen ahead, like, he's a very large presence on the show. He's not just, like, somebody
Yeah.
they run into for 5 minutes an episode. Like, him and Don Cheadle, I think, are, like, pretty much equally in the show as much as the Golden Girls are. So I see that. We were like, well, now we'll be on this big show. It's probably paid really well, too, right? Because look how big the ratings were.
No, I mean, I get it. It was just a few of those jokes that were kind of coming up right away were a little weird to me.
This is the very end of that time frame, too, that, like, we grew up in, right? Where it was like, if you're a movie actor and you start doing TV, it was, like, looked down upon, which is, like, completely gone now, right? Like, you can act in anything and nobody thinks anything of it. But,
It's kind of
I mean,
the
I can see
opposite.
that people would perceive this as, like, a slight, but you're jumping into a pretty big show.
I was going to say, that I think now it's like an opposite.
With streaming, yeah.
But
Because,
streaming,
like,
too,
look at-
movies come directly to streamers the same way that TV shows do. So, like, everybody's just kind of in the ether in the same place, you know?
Well, look at Steve Carell. When he jumped to The Office, that was a huge deal.
Not really. When Steve Carell went to The Office,
He wasn't big yet.
This was like his first starring role in anything. He was on The
I thought he
Daily
was on
Show
40
and
I thought he was on
he
40 Year Old
left
Virgin.
He left
that was
because
after
he
the
got
show
too
started.
big.
Yeah, 40-Year-Old Virgin
Oh,
happened,
okay.
like, during The Office.
they were like a
run.
couple seasons in when he got 40-Year-Old Virgin. But
Yeah,
anyways,
he was
Oh,
like
okay.
doing like
Yeah, he was
the Dana
Anchorman.
Carvey show, and he was a writer and doing SNL stuff. So he was like a comedian who do bit parts. I think for a while he did Daily Show too.
yeah, he was mostly
Oh,
known
yeah,
for Daily
Steven
Show,
and
and then he
Steven.
had like a scene in like Bruce Almighty that was like very popular. That kind of got him.
Yeah, and he was Brick Tamblyn in Anchorman.
Anchorman.
Yeah.
The Anchorman would have been pre The Office, right? Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so. So, anyways, going back to this, finding out that they're in charge doesn't seem to faze him. And he says everything you know about angry Mexican chefs is true, and you better run as fast as your legs can take you. And Sophia's like, no, I'm the boss. And he says he's broken piñatas bigger than her. And again, it was just like, I don't know, right off the bat, I'm a Mexican chef. I've broken piñatas as big as you. It's just, it's just like every single line. It's like, we know you're Mexican. I felt like they were really driving it in a little too hard
feel
in the
like
beginning.
The Mexican part, yes, but as far as being like a head chef, like they're known to be standoffish and like that and fight. The kitchen is their domain, you know.
Yeah, kitchen
so
staff.
That part's believable at least. I think that's one of the more believable parts of the show.
And he tells them, I've really been building up this place in the last month or so that I've been here, cooking some of the finest Mexican food in town. And Sophia's like, well, from now on, we're cooking Italian. And the studio audience went kind of crazy. And
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
thought that was weird.
Is that racist? like, no more of this Mexican shit. We're Italian now. The
All I can
crowd's
think
like,
of is
"Yeah."
that like that's the two best kinds of food ever. Like if one of them could also just make a burger, it'd be like, this is my happy place. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, I want nachos and like chicken parm and a burger. Like this is the best kitchen. Just do both.
Just that crowd response was so strong, like stronger than I remember any other reaction throughout the episode. I was like, why on that line?
It was filmed in Brooklyn.
So then he tells us the only way that she's making pizza in there is if she puts beans and jalapenos on it and calls it nachos. Again, I was like, I felt like that line was super
I
fast.
also don't get it.
Yeah, a pizza with beans and jalapenos on it is still not nachos. It's just bean and jalapeno
Just a-
pizza.
Kind of gross pizza, yeah.
I would
We
try
also live in a world now where they make Mexican pizza.
That's also true.
And Chinese pizza,
True.
which is one of my favorites.
Chinese pizza is really good.
What's on Chinese pizza?
It's
Not to
built on a
derail this.
scallion pancake, and then they just kind of put appetizers and cheese on the top of it.
Spare ribs on
Oh.
top.
Yeah, it's like boneless spare rib, and you get like a drizzle of like teriyaki sauce, and they throw some cheese on it. It's really fucking good.
That's not like a worldwide thing. That's an HKD thing.
No,
Is
Little
that-
Asia as well. All regional, so I don't want to get, I don't know, I'm sure other Chinese food places across the country do it, but a couple of very
But
specific.
Northeast
That must be
or New
the-
England or Northeast Coast Chinese food is different than a lot of other Chinese food.
That must be the only place that buys cheese. a Chinese chain that buys cheese.
Yeah, I was talking about that the other day. Aside from a crab rangoon, there's like no cheese in anything Chinese food.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Carry on.
So
I was trying
now-
to think if that was accurate, and it is.
So Sophia stays pretty strict on this whole Italian thing, and Chuy finally just says, "You know what? I quit," and he leaves. So now in the next scene, Blanche and Roland are in their office while she's kind of on the phone with her lawyer trying to get out of this whole situation. And not only is she stuck, but we find out that she has this big payment that's due in a week, or they're going to get shut down completely.
I feel like there should have been one more scene in between her with Oliver and her with him, because it just cuts to her trying to get out of it. Like, there should have been, like, the whole scene of her confronting him, like, this place sucks, uh-oh, like.
Yeah, it's because she's been pretty for it up until now. And yeah, now it's I got to get out of here quick. And she doesn't even know about, like, half the shortcomings of the place yet.
that's a good point. Yeah.
But Oliver should have been like a pretty good indicator though, right? Like, why is there a little kid answering the phone, running towels, doing stuff like that? Something is obviously not right in the business practice if you've
But
got
I guess
a
the connection
kid.
to the fact that his foster parent is running the place makes a little bit of sense there. Because he's just kind of working with dad.
Yeah, that does make sense.
And it's not so much, it's also that they're short-staffed, but even if they were a little more staffed, I think he would be there anyways helping out. So I guess that's justifiable. But we basically find out, the way it was explained when she gets off the phone, is that the previous owners fired everybody but just a couple people to fix the numbers so it looked like they were turning a profit right before they made the sale. So now, if the travel agents, who are all showing up, check out early because they're unhappy with their stay, they're not going to pull in enough money to make the next banknote. And Roland says that he's going to have to go back to Disney World and strap on his sneezy head.
First of all, that is not true because they would pay when they get to the hotel regardless. So
Also not
depending-
true is he would never be sneezy. Disney is very particular with the height of their dwarves.
Okay, that's a good point.
I mean the seven dwarves. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
even if you wanted to be like Tigger, you have to be a certain height to be like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. They are very like with their like characters.
Ferg knows this from many rejected applications.
They won't hire me, man.
He just sent an email, then who can I be?
Berg's looking into getting the Cotton Hill surgery to take his shins out so he can be the same height as a Seven Dwarf.
Hi-ho!
Ferg, if you could be a Disney character, what Disney character would you be?
In
Grumpy.
reality, I'd probably be Grumpy, but
Yeah.
I would like to be Scrooge McDuck because he's one of my favorites and he's rich.
It's a good one.
Okay, that's good. Anybody else have a favorite that
I
they would
don't.
want to be?
For like Disney in general,
Yeah, if you could play a Disney character, who would you be?
I really don't know. I really don't know.
I don't know either. That's a tough. There's so
Yeah.
many.
Do you have one yourself?
Off the top of my head, no, but I mean, I
Sleepy?
could. No, I wouldn't be a dwarf.
Am I the only one that ever has answers to Gordo's questions?
I would
I don't
want to
know.
be the parrot from Aladdin, Gilbert Gottfried.
I was just
Iago?
thinking that. I was
Iago.
just thinking that.
I'm molting!
I guess I could play Sebastian.
Why?
Wait, who's Sebastian?
The crab
Under
from
the
Little Mermaid.
sea.
Oh, under the sea. Okay.
I got a good accent. I could pull that off.
Yeah, let's
I
hear
don't know.
it.
I mean, as most of you guys know, Goofy movie is one of my all-time favorites. So maybe Max
Son of a
Goof.
bitch.
This is infringement.
So now Blanche gets up because she feels like she has to tell the others. And Roland's like, why did they tell me that you guys had experience with this? And he said, I heard you were part of a successful chain. And she's like, the only chain I was ever a part of, I'm not telling you about.
Ew.
Oh, Joe.
I do
There
declare.
you go.
I will say this, and I've seen plenty of the Golden Girls, but it's not fresh in my mind. And I know the joke is always that she's a slut. But like,
Did you ever get
having like a
ran on her?
train ran on her, is that the kind of lengths that they were going to back then in that show?
I mean,
I feel like
I'm
that's
trying to
the
remember
kind-
if they've ever made a she gets a train ran on her
Like,
joke for
I
any
feel
of
like
them.
that-
I don't
that's
think
the
they
kind
do.
of joke they'd make at her expense, but not the kind that she would
She
say
would
at
make
her
on
own.
herself.
Like,
Yeah.
like in reality, this happened. These aren't just jokes. She's a whore. fuck, like 10 guys? Like,
The only other time I've ever had all my holes filled at the same time. I'm not going to tell you about, I do declare. It's like, that seems like an odd thing to say to your new boss.
Maybe she meant like chains, like as in like BDSM.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Oh, that makes way more sense than getting train ran on.
you know what? Still.
What if it was human centipede, like a chain of people? type of
That's
thing?
what I was thinking too.
I don't want any of these visuals in my head, so to move right along. So
You get to eat at the front, but you have more fun on the back, is what I would assume.
But you don't want to eat on the back either.
Oh boy. So Sophia and Rose are cooking in the kitchen, and Sophia tells a joke about how she used to do catering for Italian funerals, but that was a lot easier because usually they tip you off a couple days ahead of time so you can start cooking beforehand. That's what, like a putting a hit on them type joke?
Yeah, it's a mob
Pretty
joke.
much.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Blanche comes in and tells them the situation, and Rose doesn't understand at first, and one thing I liked was when Sophia's trying to break it down for her so she understands that they're broke, and she's like, we're up the creek, Mahala, bust, we have a dog here, and Rose's face when she hears that there's a dog there, she thinks there's literally a dog in the hotel, and she lightens up so much. I thought it was so funny.
It's one of the best like line readings of the whole show.
She's
her
like,
where.
where?
It's so fucking good.
But this is when I started questioning the whole money thing. I was like, isn't she rich? Like, can't she take some of her personal funds and, like, you know, hire staff?
Again, I don't know the
stuff,
specifics, but I just imagine that buying a hotel is
Was
expensive.
all the money, yeah.
I guess I just assumed she was a lot richer than she is. for
Yeah,
the
that might be
first
part of it.
thing. But that's on me.
And then when the reality of the situation starts to kick in, she says that this is her worst nightmare and she wishes Dorothy were here. And Blanche is like, I'm afraid even Dorothy couldn't help us out with this one. He's like, no, but she could beat the crap out of you.
That was my favorite line in the show. It was so, I did not expect it. It was really good.
This is also
Yeah.
when I started to think she might be dead.
Thank
now-
you. I thought the same thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe just because I know enough, I couldn't detach it. But they didn't, I don't know. I didn't feel like there were any cues that she was dead, knowing the end of Golden Girls. So maybe that's why.
I don't think I've seen the end of Golden Girls, so I didn't know if she. So I'm with Ferg that I thought she was dead.
It did end with her wedding and her movie, like we said. And she moves off, and this is only a couple months later.
But they're like,
So
I
now-
think they're
Dorothy
assuming
was
that
here,
most people
but-
watching this were also Golden Girls fans.
Right.
Yes, because it's a continuation. It's not a fucking another show.
It really is.
This is a
It re-
rule
I mean,
break.
But
This is a bit of a rule break, I will say.
It's-
Like,
it's a
Empty
new-
Nest is a much more of a spin-off to Golden
we've talked
Girls.
about this, though. I mean, it has a new name, and it's season 1, episode 1. So it's the first televised episode of Golden Palace. So by
It's
all
listed
accounts,
separately on Hulu. You watch all of Golden Girls, and then you watch all of Golden Palace.
Yeah. So now the girls are starting to panic, and Blanche tells them, you know, we can make this work, and we don't really have a choice anyways, and they're just going to have to do all the work themselves. And Rose is like, we're too old to do all the work, and I hate you for this.
She's
And-
like genuinely, like, this is like kind of like the angriest you really see Rose
Well, she was
ever.
already nervous and upset about the idea of leaving this home that she loved to do this, and now she finds out that they're on the brink of being completely broken, thrown out on the street, and they're older women. Like, she doesn't want to start all over again and start working 40 hours a week.
Yeah,
They were-
I definitely feel for her in this because
Yeah.
she's also she's kind of the most aloof one, right? She's kind of dumb with. I don't want to call her dumb, but like that's what they're going
That's
for,
the
right?
character type that she always had.
Right, and she just doesn't want to be away from her friends. She didn't want to do this to begin with, and now it's just turned to shit. I you know, you kind of feel bad for her in this instance, but I would feel the same way, I think.
The
Where
Her
I
to
think-
start over at 70 is probably a little scary
Yeah.
too, right?
The thing is, what did she really lose? They were living off.
But they were all retired. You know, they were all just like retired and living their retirement. And
It seems to me that like everybody probably kicked in some money on this. Like it wasn't just like
Yeah.
Rose sold her house and they all pulled their money together.
Yeah.
so now
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
where I think they failed was we never really got the explanation of why they bought the hotel. We just know they bought a hotel, and there's no like explanation anywhere as to why that decision was made.
It was Rue McClanahan's house, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean when I said they were living off her.
But they all worked.
Yeah, but they basically the way it
Everyone
was
but
explained,
Sophia worked.
the way it was explained in Golden Girls was they basically answered an ad and
Yeah, to be
took over
roommates.
rooms. Yeah, and they just became close friends.
Yeah, so they're paying rent too.
They're all
to
paying
Sophia.
rent.
I mean to Rue.
But why Blanche would then want to sell her home to buy a hotel and start working again in that industry at her age is a little questionable, and maybe a little explanation.
Well, no, it's explained earlier. The salespeople explained it to her as it was a successful hotel that runs itself. So she thought she was buying it. It was going to run itself, and they were going to be able to just hang out and collect money off this
yeah, I
gold
guess,
mine.
and then maybe
Doesn't she explain it very soon that that's her explanation for it? That they thought it would just be printing money?
Well, early on it was kind of explained that way. So yes, in that regard, I guess it kind of makes sense. But when you're still talking about women on the brink of, not even on the brink of, in their retirement, there's not that need for the extra income. So it doesn't matter if it's, you can just live a comfortable, happy life as they were.
Plus,
But-
you're thinking of the luxury too of hey, and now you're gonna live in a hotel on South Beach in Miami where there's a pool and a spa and all this stuff, and you're on the beach, and that's where you live now. It's taken care of. It's part of this investment. You have this beautiful hotel room that you live in.
Right.
I think it's appealing in that way.
So now Sophia says that, we better get to work because we don't really have any other choice. And Blanche is kind of excited. She's like, okay, look at us. We're like the Three Musketeers. And as she's exiting the kitchen, she's telling them, once this is all over, you're going to be thanking me for all this. And after she walks out, Rose says to Sophia, maybe we don't need Dorothy. Maybe we can just beat the crap out of her with the two of us.
Gave me a good
Perfect
laugh.
way to button that scene up.
Yeah, it closed out nice. Everything came full circle. So in that next scene, Blanche walks into the main lobby and she sees Roland talking to the pool guy, Brad. And she starts flirting very hard with him the second she sees him. And he seems to be taking to it pretty well. He's pretty accepting of her advances. And Sophia walks by and in passing just calls her a modern tramp. And they really took a long pause for reaction shots and laughter.
Is it modern tramp? I heard lying tramp.
Was it lying tramp? I thought it was modern tramp.
I think it's lying.
Maybe it
I'll
was.
get back to the footage.
I thought it was modern, yeah, but regardless, a tramp nonetheless. And then Brad brings up that there's been payment issues, and she walks him over to the couch and gives him this excuse about how all the money needs to be transferred from one account to another, and then it's a Swiss account, and I understand what you being a pool man, you must know all about international banking. And he's like, well, just a little bit. And Sophia walks by again and just goes, slut. Nothing
The
else.
slut is hard.
Yeah.
That's a hard
That
ass
was,
on that slut.
I
Unexpected.
died laughing. I was not expecting that.
And that was kind of just buttoned up with her basically suggesting if you just wait another month for your payment, that I'll fuck you.
Yeah,
Right?
I will suck your dick. Just I'll pay you later.
I'm surprised.
Do you know who that guy is too? That actor? He's in Liar Liar when Jim Carrey gets pulled over and he has to explain to the cop every bad thing he did. He's like, I changed lanes
yeah.
without signaling and speeding. That whole scene. That's the cop
Yeah.
he explains it
Oh,
all
no
to.
shit.
Yeah.
So now the next scene, Rose walks into the kitchen to return a plate to Sophia that one of the travel agents has been complaining about. It's the dinner hour now. And she said she served to over 40 people tonight and not one complaint other than this guy who's already complained about his salad a little bit earlier. And she says if he doesn't like this lamb chop, maybe he'll like this one here. And she just flips the lamb chop that's on the plate onto its other side, which I thought was very funny.
Also, lamb
And-
chops not a huge Italian food.
No, not really. Not the style at which she
Yeah.
was presenting it to them.
Right, she's
I mean-
we're cooking Italian from now on. Lamb chops for everybody. I was I come from a pretty Italian family. I've never had a lamb chop in my life.
I've had lamb for dinner. Of course I have.
Yeah.
I mean, like a Sunday.
I've had it
dinner.
as a meal.
Yes. No, I mean that's like a Sunday meal.
Sometimes
for
you put
Italian.
lamb in if you're making
It's like spring.
a tomato gravy or sauce or
Some
however
people put it
you
in the
want to have that
meatballs
argument.
too, yeah.
Sometimes
My
you add
grandmother
lamb
used to
it.
eat it. My grandmother used to eat it with mint jelly, and it used to fucking disgust me.
Yeah, the mint jelly thing is kind of gnarly.
As it should.
I always just
But-
lean towards pork. I feel like you can do a lot with pork chops the exact same, and
Oh, I'm a big fan of lamb meat. I like lamb a lot, actually.
What's mint jelly?
It's exactly,
it's exactly
what
what you
what
think
you
it
think.
is.
Yeah.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
It's a very big thing.
Yeah.
And it's specifically for lamb chops, more or less. That's kind
Yeah,
of
that's exactly what you're supposed to have it on.
Ew.
It's kind of like
Exactly.
I love being here watching you find out this terrible thing
Yeah.
exists.
I think pork in a sauce though is the best way to go. A nice
I
fatty,
agree.
Oh, me
nice
too.
fatty pork. The fat on that pork is what gives 80% of the flavor to a good sauce.
And what the sauce does to it, it almost makes it like pulled pork.
Yeah,
Yep.
Ferg, you're right.
And then it's like a win too, because then when you're like doling out the meatballs and everything later on, and you get a pork piece, you're like, oh shit, yeah,
Yeah.
the elusive pork piece.
Yeah.
I want to say this, as far as flipping the pork chop, and I'm sorry, the lamb chop, it's funny, but in theory, shouldn't there be a big cut piece
Right?
out? The
I
guy-
said check to the middle.
I tried to take that out of my brain and just laugh at the joke, but I thought the same thing. Like,
He said it was dry and it was pink in the middle, leading you to believe that he cut it open and tasted it. But this
Right.
pork chop is just like it's also the pork chop looks like when you give a dog a toy of a pork chop. Like it's the most perfect cutout of a pork
Yeah.
chop.
And Sophia takes the plate and walks out herself instead of Rose. And she gives it to the guy, and she said, I'm the chef, I really apologize. And they have this whole conversation about it, like Joe, as you're explaining how it looked. And he finally takes a bite. He's like, oh, now this is good. So it's like, it tells you a lot about this travel agent the way he was talking about the food and talking about its lack of je ne sais quoi and all this stuff, he's completely talking out of his ass. He's complaining just to sound like he knows more than he does.
Yeah, he's trying to impress his date.
Yeah, that's what I got too.
It usually impresses women, I find, when I'm around them, if I say things like je ne sais quoi to the hotel meal I'm eating. They're usually really excited about that.
You know what I think is
believe
impressive
it.
to a
That just
date?
worked on me. Come here, big boy.
Yeah.
Ferg is dripping right now.
If you're on a date, the last thing I'd want to do is be like, I don't like my pork chop. It's too dry. Like that. I feel like that looks awful if you're on a date. You can feed me a dog biscuit. I'm going to pretend it's delicious and not say a word. In that
Especially you're yelling at this poor little old lady.
I know.
Betty White.
Exactly.
So old.
I mean, to say that it's missing je ne sais quoi is like such a douche.
Yeah.
Kind of-
There's no way to say that and not sound like a dick. And now this scene I thought was hilarious because now we cut to Rose at the front desk and then there's a man in a ski mask who runs in and asks for the safe. And she's like, oh, aren't you warm in that hat? And
Yeah, I
he
like
holds
this
up a
scene.
gun and he's like, where's the safe? Where's the safe? He's like, oh, you want to put the gun in the safe? I don't know where it is. I'll have to call the manager. And she's talking to Roland on the phone and this guy is like going crazy because he's in a rush trying to hold up the hotel. And she hangs up. He's like, oh, don't worry. It's just going to be a few minutes. And she's like looking down and just going through the papers again while this guy's like in a rush, like jumping up and down with his gun, like waiting for her to take her to the safe.
This guy, I apologize to all of you. He is going to be the reason that there will be an episode coming up soon that everybody here is going to hate.
Oh, great.
Vito.
Vito.
You can't just veto me saying I want to do an episode.
Don Vito.
Nick.
Don Vito gets it. No, I looked up this dude. He's in a TV show he's one of the main characters called The Famous Teddy Z. And he's
Vito.
like the friend, and the main character is John Cryer, like Ducky from Pretty in Pink and from Dudes and all those movies.
You don't have to
And
explain
apparently
who John
Ducky-
Cryer is.
John Cry's pretty famous.
John
Two
Cryer
and
is
a
very
Half Men
famous.
would have also helped.
Oh, I probably should have said, I never watched that, but I've watched Pretty in Pink and Dudes a million times. But he
Hot
has a
Shots.
family bakery he doesn't want to work in, so he goes and joins the army, and then when he comes back, he gets a job in the mailroom of a successful talent agency. It looks like it's probably the worst sitcom of all time, and I can't fucking wait to watch it.
Oh,
Vito.
good.
I really want to get stamps made that have the vetoes and just rubber stamp it.
So now he's in this rush, and obviously she's just like calmly going through this. She cannot process that he's trying to rob the place. And then she's like, is this your first time in Miami? On account of the mask he's wearing.
He's wearing a balaclava in
Yeah.
1,000-degree weather.
And he finally gives up. He's like, oh, where are you going? He's like, the Hilton. And it was like, is this... Would you, if you're going to hold up a hotel...
No, you don't go to a hotel. That is not the place you,
You don't go to the
rob.
front desk
Yeah,
of the
no.
hotel, and then like during like dinner hours, right? Like, wouldn't you at least wait till like 3 a.m. when most people are asleep and there's someone alone at the desk?
Yeah, one person alone at the desk. In most hotels like that, you have to be buzzed in at night, too.
I mean, no, this is pre all that. This is pre all that like buzzing people in
Before
and
the show,
stuff.
all that.
Yes. No, because this is where people would be paying cash and like credit cards wouldn't be like a real big thing.
No, but
It's
you gotta,
not as
you gotta
yeah,
think about
neat.
it this way. It's Miami, like a rich area, and there'd be rich people staying there and keeping their shit in the safe. So you hit the safe,
But
you get all
in
the
in
jewels
South
and shit.
Beach, Miami, this is not that hotel. Like, this is obviously a smaller hotel that's struggling.
But
You
you would
don't know
think
that.
the security would probably be a little bit lesser at a place like this. But still, the timing is terrible.
Yeah, no, I get why they did it. It was a really funny scene if you don't break it down too much. But
Yeah.
I still
Yeah,
think
it
it
doesn't
makes
make
sense, but that's me. That's me.
I just question his timing because the odds of there being a ton of witnesses at that very point in time are very high. You want to at least make sure the people are asleep.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if there's witnesses. He has a mask, and there's no cell phones. Or less cell phones.
True, it does take a lot longer for things to happen at that point. So now we cut to Sophia, who's in the kitchen talking to herself about how she needs help. And out of view, you hear Chuy return and say, "I'm back." And Sophia looks up and goes, "Dorothy?"
That's one of the great moments of this episode.
So now this is a joke about like the tone of Dorothy's voice, I assume, correct?
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
And
big
I-
thing on Golden Girls to make fun of her voice and how tall she is and like that she's kind of a manly-ish featured.
And from what I understand, that was part of her not wanting to continue on. I had read that she was a little tired about all the jokes about her manly appearance. Like, so the fact that they went with that in this episode, like,
Seems like a dig.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm tired of you calling me mannish. And then you have Cheech Marin going, "I'm back." And it's like, Dorothy?
Cheech Marin, a man with one of the greatest mustaches of all time.
Right.
And you're like, oh, is that Dorothy?
Turns out she was like, she felt bad and she was about to return. She like opens the door and hears that joke and shuts it and leaves.
Yeah. She's like, I'll watch the first episode, see how it goes.
It gets robbed by that guy in the alley.
Tonight's episode, B. Arthur will be portrayed as Cheech Marin. It's like he's playing Dorothy. Mom.
So now Chewy asks for his job back, and he's basically saying that he's going through a messy divorce, and also it's hard to fuck in his car.
I do
Yeah.
love that that's his big issue. Also, look at Cheech Marin. Who divorces Cheech Marin?
I don't know if he's. I was about to say like maybe someone did, but I don't know off the top of my head what his past marital status is.
Yeah, I guess in real life, I don't know how many times he has or has not been married. But even this
Well-
character of Chewy seems so lovable, rather.
Cheech Marin is on his third marriage.
So two people divorced Cheech Marin.
You said his character's so lovable. All we've seen of him so far is him fighting with old ladies.
Yeah. So Joe, to answer your question,
Yeah.
Darlene Morley and Patty Hyde, they both divorced Cheech Marin.
Well, you could argue that they both died. They're not clickable.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't know.
So he's a
Maybe he
serial
killed them by
killer.
fucking them in his car too much and they got
Yeah.
stuck or something.
Well, so to go on from there.
God darn.
I love you, Cheech.
Yeah, so she tells him, you're going to have to do a little bit better than that. And he goes, "I don't know how to say this, but I'm attracted to you." And Sophia's like, "You're in." And she
You're
tells
in.
him, "Yeah, you can have your old salary and you can have a room and we can even go a little back and forth. We'll cook a little bit of my way, a little bit of your way. But you have to pretend that you're really attracted to me." And Roland happens to walk in right at that time and goes, "Hey, how's everything in here?" She goes, "I feel pretty."
I thought that was cute.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did too.
I always wonder, too, in situations like this, how many rooms there are in the hotel.
Yeah.
Because
From the
if
outside,
everybody
yeah,
has their
there's a
own
good
room,
We
Didn't
keep
they
hearing about
say-
like 40-something guests.
Yeah,
so-
they said something about 40-something guests earlier in the episode. So
if they show it, I think it's like a 3-story building, right, when they do the exterior.
But it's like
Yeah,
a
but we
boutique
don't know how
hotel.
deep it is.
So
But
maybe
we don't
we're
know how
talking
deep.
20. Well,
But we get the picture, right? In our chat.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
but-
not it's not the real. It's tough
It
to
could
say.
be. It could be
storyline-wise.
like a full city block.
I'm guessing there's like 25 rooms or so.
No, there's way more than 25 if it's 3 floors.
I'm gonna guess there's probably 68.
Well, there's a very, very specific number for a fictitious hotel.
But Gordon did work in the hotel industry.
Are we looking up how many hotel rooms?
It's not a real place. There's no way to look up
No,
that
but that's a
number.
real hotel, and if you look up how many rooms are in that hotel,
I guess we
ostensibly
could
that
do
should
that.
be.
Yeah.
Anybody on that?
I'm going by this picture, looking at the windows. It looks like window-wise it's 4x4. So,
which would make J right, which means 4 on each side of each floor, which would be 8, 16, 24.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to end the conversation right there then.
Jay was right.
We'll go with 24. But, okay, so now Chuy has a room. All three of the Golden Girls have a room.
We don't know that yet.
We
Maybe
do know
they
that.
share
That's
about
their-
like the Three Stooges, though, so that's just one room.
They
It's
might
like
have
the-
a giant
the grandparents
suite, but
in
just
Willy
we're
Wonka.
just gonna go with everybody has their own room. You got the snorts going now.
Oh, man. That piece of shit, Grandpa Joe.
I'm going to look this up.
Side note, I love that the internet turned on Grandpa Joe like 40 years later.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
So now, in the next scene, the girls are all sitting at the table in the dining area and they're reflecting on the day. And Rose compares the day to how hard she used to have to work growing up on a farm. And, you know, how they would work all day and night until they died. It's like, oh, all right. And it did remind me of, like, to go back to the Golden Girls pilot, she did have those, like, really dark jokes out of nowhere. Not jokes, but just these dark comments that didn't fit her bubbly personality.
She is from a pretty tough, very cold place.
Yeah.
Blanche tells them, you know, hey, we did it. And turns out they made enough money to survive another month and then hire some new help, and that all the travel agents that were there said that they would recommend the place. They're just kind of not reacting to that news, and Blanche's like, all right, stop being mad, like, just admit that you guys had fun. And Rose did, like, you know, she did feel rewarded doing all this. But Sophia's like, you almost killed me. And Blanche is like, nothing could kill you. And Sophia's like, well, too much corn.
I thought that was weird.
She makes two very weird digestion jokes in a row here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then Rose starts talking about how good she felt all week and how it felt like she had a purpose again. And then this was kind of weird. There was just like a quick thing where Sophia's like, you know, I'm 88. And she's like, you're 87. What? You're 87. Okay. And it was just like,
It doesn't go anywhere.
yeah, it was just kind of like died there.
You know what's funny is I had this exact issue yesterday. I could not remember how old I was turning. I was like,
Nick's trying to get a senior discount. They're like, sir,
Yeah.
you are not 88.
AARP.
No. So, there was something about somebody turning 40 on TV. We were watching TV, and I was like, damn, I'm going to turn 38. That's pretty crazy. I'm like getting close to 40. And then like 5 minutes went by, and my girlfriend was like, you're not going to be 38. You're going to be 37. I was like, and I had to do the math. I was like, oh, fuck. I think I thought I was 37 this whole year. Wait, I am 37, right? We're 37?
Not yet. You
Not
will
yet.
be
I
37.
I mean, 36.
37.
I am 36 right
You
now.
are currently 36. You will be 37.
Are you okay?
I don't know why. I think I just started calling. You know how at a certain point in the year you're like, all right, I'm pretty much this age. I just think I started doing that too early and just started considering myself 37 already. But
Yeah, you get a couple more months.
It's a
Here we
weird
are,
thing
yeah.
though, because like this has happened to me before. Someone goes, "How old are you?" and you go, But if somebody says, "What's your date of birth?" you can rattle that off right
yeah.
away. But you never think of what your age is. You know what I mean? Somebody asks you, I'm always like scanning for a second, like 37.
Joe constantly just going, what's my age again? What's my age again?
Lame.
Don't love
Joe,
that.
Joe, you have that tattooed.
Stop! Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
It's what's that fucking rabbit with that carrot or whatever logo.
Oh, Joe's tramp stamp?
Hey, I don't like the word tramp. Okay, it's my lady stamp.
All right,
Your slut stamp.
Okay,
You guys are being
Gordon,
really
you've been
NPC
trying to
right
say-
now about this tattoo.
Oh, I'll bring it up at the end of the episode for additional notes.
Okay, cool.
How about that?
When Sophia continues to talk, she's talking about how Dorothy's gone. She also mentioned that she hasn't
She's
digested
dead.
an onion. No, not that she's
I
dead.
don't know. I don't know from this pilot, but she's gone. Who says they're gone?
Just so dark. Be like, I can't digest an onion. My daughter is dead. Like, wow, this thing got weird.
Yeah,
Corn kills her.
She hasn't. Is an onion that hard to digest? She says it's
No.
been 20 years since she digested an onion.
I don't eat onions,
she's-
so I do not know.
Also, they're all struggling. I know she's moved on with her life, but I feel like she would have came to help them in this time of need for this week.
I think though that
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be
Yeah.
right after. Like, I think this all moved pretty quickly. She's probably like just on her honeymoon, just getting settled. And if Leslie Nielsen is to be believed, he's probably being the umpire at a World Series game or something going wrong.
Farting up.
Or he's
Hanging out with O.J. Simpson right before it was a real bad time to hang out with O.J. Simpson.
dead and loving it.
She married Dracula. He's not Frank Drebin, he's Dracula. Where was that show?
What an
First of all,
icon he was.
That is
seriously.
that is a severely underrated Mel Brooks movie. It didn't get the credit it deserved.
Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know it's tough
fantastic
because
movie.
to talk Leslie Nielsen. I mean, obviously because he married Dorothy in Golden Girls, he's not really here. But there's a guy who like started as a serious actor, and like the thought of him being serious ever is so weird to me.
Gordo, I don't know if you've seen, there are so many clips of Leslie Nielsen being interviewed on
Farting.
talk shows with a fart.
Yeah, he has
like,
a pooter.
thing. He's like a pooter thing in his hand and just rips farts throughout the interview and ignores the fact that he's farting and just lets the host try to figure it out. It's
There's
fucking
literally
hysterical.
an interview you can watch of B. Arthur talking about how much she hated working with Leslie Nielsen, and she's like, he was such a handsome man, but he had that stupid machine, and he would use it all the time. I don't know if it was like on the E! True Hollywood Story, or if it was on like the biography of Leslie Nielsen, but I'll be able to find it somewhere.
God, what a treasure.
Icon.
We have to do Police Squad.
It was supposed
I
to
was
be your
gonna
pick a
pick
long
that
time ago,
once.
and you never went back to it.
Because I think we couldn't find it.
I don't think Gordo's had a pick in months. So
I actually haven't.
He keeps betting his picks away.
Was O.J. Simpson in any funny pilots? I feel like that'd be a fun character to dance around for an hour and a half.
Yeah, he was on that episode of The Cosby Show.
Ooh. This is like a bit of a side note, but because we talk about pilots and we were just talking about OJ, right around this time, he did a pilot for, it might have even been CBS, called The Frogmen. That was going to be like a army show, right? Where they were like Navy SEALs or whatever. And he got arrested and they asked like whether it was like Brandon Tartikoff or whoever like the head of the network was. They were like, are you going to air the show? And they were like, well, if he's not guilty, of course we're going to play it. But if he's guilty, no, we probably won't play it. I thought it was so honest just to be like, well, if he's a murderer, no. But if he's off, we'll still do the show and probably have great ratings now.
I wish they
So
were
wait a minute,
actual
so they
frogmen.
did?
No, they didn't, because he got away with it, but everyone still knows he's a murderer.
He got away with it, but if he did do it, this would be how.
this is how he
Yeah.
But if he wrote a book about doing it.
I have that book.
I bet it's a great read.
It actually is. If you want, I can send it to you so you can read it.
Another funny thing about that book, Gord, I'll pull it out later, because Ronald
Whoa,
Goldman's...
Let me just whip this out.
But on the book, because the Goldman family took over the publishing and they get all the money for it, they just made the word "if" like so small you can barely see it. So when you look at the book, it's just a giant picture of OJ's face. It says, "I did it." Fucking greatest marketing of all
Let me see
time.
if I have it. I'll pull it out. Maybe I'll take a picture of it for our Instagram.
Whoa, again, guys.
This conversation is
How?
gold.
How did
clips?
All right,
if
well,
you want that for our Insta, maybe we'll start an OnlyFans.
No, all right. So to rope in this scene, basically, Sophia just says, like, it was good to wake up and have stuff to do again. And the three girls all toast to having a life again.
Which is bad luck in a bad situation they're in right now. They all toast with water. Not a good move.
could have been gin?
A little vodka.
A pitcher of
Vodka?
gin.
Yeah. So now everyone, actually, to go back, I do think that in the pilot of
It was. They did talk about gin.
She Drinks Gin, Sophia drinks gin, that comes up in the pilot of Golden Girls.
Yeah.
So
Well,
picture
maybe
of
they're
gin
cheering
all
with straight
around.
gin.
Yeah.
I'll go with it.
So now in the final scene, we kind of have that classic Golden Girls. Everyone is in the kitchen having cheesecake, only now it's with all the guys too. So Roland and Chuy and Oliver are sitting with the three girls. Rose goes to tell them the story about St. Olaf, where she's from. And all the guys are like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Tell us about it. And Sophia and Blanche are like, rookies. And they just take off before she can get into the story.
I do like that they left.
And that's how that closes out that episode.
I do like too that like Roland and all of them have like a confused look too. They're not understanding what's going on. Like they framed it for everybody very well.
They haven't been dealing with this for years like the other girls have. And yeah, that was the conclusion of the episode. Gordy, you said you had a tidbit you wanted to get into?
Yes, actually. According to robonlocation.com.
Best hotels to rob.
Yes. This is what he has to say about the Golden Palace Hotel. However, a real Miami hotel was used for the establishing shots. The Carlisle was picked to portray the show's location and appeared in the opening credits. If the hotel looks familiar, you may recognize it from the 1996 comedy, The Birdcage.
Oh!
It is no longer a hotel, but
It is still a birdcage.
it's a residential condo.
It's still a birdcage.
So you can
It's still a
actually...
birdcage.
It is still a birdcage.
You're planting seeds for that joke the whole day.
Joe, now knowing this information, is there any thought in your mind to sell your house and relocate and buy a condo at the Golden Palace?
No, but I will say, I've given some shit to Florida in the past, but I genuinely do like Miami a lot. And I'm a little sad that, so to be honest with you, I didn't know about Golden Palace until like 2 years ago. I had no idea this even existed.
I meant to bring that up at the beginning of the show. I had never heard about it until you mentioned it for the first time.
Because it came up when Hulu like a year or two ago was like, hey,
Netflix.
Maybe it was Netflix, but whoever was posting it like had a thing. They were like, hey, this like sort of lost season of the Golden Girls happened, and like Don Cheadle and Cheech Marin are in it, and it's about the hotel, and we're gonna have it all for streaming in like a week or whatever. I like lost my mind. I was like, I can't believe there's a whole other season of this with all these people
At the
in it.
time, it was Hulu. Hulu's the one who originally unearthed like that and put it in streaming. I don't know who has it now. It might be Netflix now, but
Oh, I thought Netflix had it.
Hulu at that time, from what I
Yeah, it
read,
was
they were the
Hulu.
ones who kind of
Okay.
put it out. They were the first to put it out
When
in
we
streaming.
did Golden, what's the show's called?
Girls.
Golden-
Golden
Girls?
We did
Girls.
Golden Girls. It was on Hulu. I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
I
so there was
watched
a
it on
time
Oh, okay.
where this show got kind of roped in with syndication, so I saw that Lifetime had it, but Lifetime had the rights to Golden Girls, and this was kind of thrown in, so they kind of just aired it as the final season. And nowadays, from what I understand, as far as syndicated rights, I don't know about streaming, it's not anywhere in syndication. Golden Girls is, but Golden Palace is not. It's not like together as it once was.
Yeah, like you'll still see Golden Girls on like Oxygen or TV Land, but I had never seen Golden Palace episodes. But
Yeah, because
to
those
get to
two
that point though,
shows-
next time I go to Miami, I'm for sure going to this condo. I would very much like to see it.
Because they ran on different networks too, right? Golden Girls wasn't even on the same network as Golden Palace. Golden Palace was CBS.
What was
Was Golden Girls ABC?
I believe it was NBC. Golden Girls was NBC, and then CBS ended up buying the rights for Golden Palace.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
That probably caused an issue with the distribution and stuff then too.
Yeah, I'm
syndication.
sure that but it is weird thinking like having all that success, and then like I said, it was over 27 million viewers for that pilot episode. You would think that they would want to see if they could squeeze any more juice out of this,
I guess you'd have to look at how the last season did ratings wise, not just how this pilot did, because you wouldn't know that it was going to be the successful. If it was getting worse numbers in their final season, and now they're losing a member.
A lot of that depends on where NBC was going too, as far as the shows that were slotted, right? Like they might have had something slotted in the Golden Girls time slot that was doing well, or they just kind of overbooked themselves as far as shows go, and they didn't have room for it. And probably, I mean, in the end, they were right, weren't they? Because it went a season and then died, because I think they put all their eggs in
No,
Dorothy
that was
coming
Dorothy.
back. Yeah, like they wanted her
She
to.
went 8
They
seasons
thought
and
she
died.
was going to come back, but she didn't. So I mean, I guess they had the right idea with not continuing with it.
Yeah, because the offer to be Arthur was, if you come back, it was for season 2 and 3. So they were really planning on like extending this out as long as they could.
I am personally
That's a
very
risky
sad they couldn't
gamble.
make at least another season out of this, because the first one, if you watch the whole season, it flies right by. It's a pretty breezy watch, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll get into this with our green light or cancel, so we'll do that in a second, but I will say the one struggle I have is separating this as its own show.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah, me too.
in how we rate that, because, it's a different show, technically. It's a different name. They added some cast. And I get with a lot of spinoffs, you are bringing familiar characters over, but this was so tightly connected to Golden Girls, and it's really tough to separate this.
Yeah.
And when you rate it, it's like, do I pretend I don't know Golden Girls, or do I accept that Golden Girls happened and I'm watching this as a new thing branching off from it? And I guess that's where I'm struggling a little bit, but
Just go with your heart, man.
well, that being said, it's time to greenlight or cancel. So while we all kind of get our final thoughts together, I'm just going to start with Joe, who's obviously going to greenlight it. So Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm obviously in a green light.
Yeah.
I love this show. And then the thing to me, too, is like, I understand that you're saying it's hard to separate the two. I don't know if everybody, we've talked about it, but it was a while ago. If you're very familiar, like I've seen every episode of Golden Girls 100 times, right? Like that's a show I watched a lot my whole life. So finding out this existed and then getting to see these characters for a whole new, like the same characters in a different setting, I thought was so fun. And just like, you haven't seen them. It's a whole new light of it. And I love Cheech Marin. I love Don Cheadle. I'm very sad that Bobcat Goldthwait was not in this episode because his character is very fun in episode 2. Yeah, we talked a lot about this. It's just Golden Girls in a new setting, and it's fun, and it's a huge green light.
Nick.
I totally agree with you, Jay. It is really tough to differentiate, or not differentiate, but ignore.
It's like, what
Golden
angle
Girls.
am I looking at this from? Yeah.
Right, because I think a good comparison to this would be something we've already done, which is Cheers and Frasier, where it's very obviously a continuation of a single character, but you don't have to have seen Cheers to enjoy Frasier, because it's its totally own organic start to a new thing, right? Where this is just it's just a continuation of the same thing in a
Where
different...
we literally start in the same house.
Right.
And Frasier was another one of those situations where that show literally starts right after Cheers ends.
Right, exactly. So I'm greenlighting it because I did really enjoy the episode. And I would continue watching this. But it's because I know these characters and I like them. You know what I mean? Like, everybody knows the Golden Girls. If you were to replace every character on this show and do it the same way,
Golden Girls in
without the clout of the Golden Girls behind it, would I have greenlit it? And I don't know. Obviously, that goes on how well they would have executed that. But as a standalone concept of buying a hotel and seeing if you can run it as 70-year-old women doesn't sound like it would work as a sitcom. Just thinking about it as a totally separate thing. So it has a crazy unfair advantage as far as what we're doing here, I think. But at the end of the day, if we're going to consider it a pilot, I did enjoy it, and so I have to greenlight it. So that's where we are.
Ferg.
Cancel for me. If Golden Girls was this bad, it wouldn't have gotten a perfect score either, because I would have canceled Golden Girls. I thought this was all over the place. I thought they tried way too hard. It was like, especially going from Golden Girls recently just right to this, I just see the extreme flanderization of all the characters all at once, because I didn't go through a whole series to get it slowly. So the opposite is of what you guys are saying. Because Golden Girls existed, I think it hurt this show for me. I'm also a little bitter because there's no Bobcat Goldthwait, so I looked into this show with a magnifying glass and picked it apart. I thought there was no real problem, and like they didn't have like a story like, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no ups and downs really. Like the problem presented itself and you didn't see them struggle, they just did it. Like they're like, all these people are coming. You don't see them struggling with the guests and stuff.
Yeah, it just happened. I agree.
And with, oh, everything worked out. We worked hard and rolled up our sleeves. But like, you should have seen like them having problems and all this stuff and things working out. That's not good storytelling. And I don't know. I thought the script was kind of bad. Just like I said, all the exposition and stuff, like show don't tell. And because of that, yeah, cancel.
Gordo.
I am still on the fence about this because I think everybody touched on it. This show would not work if it wasn't a continuation. If we didn't know, even if I'll propose this. Even if one of the characters of the Golden Girls was on this and everybody else was replaced, would this be as good? I don't know. I think personally this works better as like a movie or like a vacation show. But I won't say that like I didn't enjoy it, because I enjoyed it. But I am gonna like very softly greenlight it. Like, I don't think it deserves to be greenlit, but I don't think it deserves to be canceled. So, but I'm gonna lean on, I liked it, I laughed, I kinda want to see the next episode, and that's what I have to go off of. So, greenlight.
Yeah, so with me, there's a couple comparisons that I'm drawing in my head. Because we keep saying the show is not different enough to be different from the Golden Girls. Now, when like we talk about The Office, Michael leaves and he's the main character, and they kind of have to add a couple characters and fidget around with everyone's roles to continue on the story. And they kind of could have just did that with Dorothy. They could have had just Dorothy leave at the end of that season and just made the next season still the Golden Girls and had them move to this hotel. But I guess one way or another doesn't matter, because I guess to the common viewer at that time, it really was the same show. It just had a new name. And then I also think about something like Saved by the Bell when they worked at the hotel, right? It wasn't a whole new show. They just worked at a hotel for a season, and that was just how that was. And it was still Saved by the Bell, and some characters were added and some weren't there.
A great
and
season.
The same thing. Yeah, it was great. But it wasn't anything else. It wasn't like Saved by the Hotel. It was just, they were still just Saved by the Bell.
That's a great title.
So
Reboot, guys. Let's do this.
Yeah, but with all that in mind, I feel like it's, in a way, it felt like not enough of a different show as a standalone. And Gordon, to what you said earlier, I think if it was just one of these characters in the role, I think it's an easy fail. You kind of needed the dynamic of the three together still for it to work.
Exactly.
But it was a fun show. It wasn't a perfect show, but it just felt like an episode of the Golden Girls. So, and for that, I'm going to greenlight it. But it is a little tricky. I guess we'll say it's a little tricky doing this show. But overall, it's getting 4 out of 5. So congratulations to Golden Palace. You live on for another episode.
One more thing. I'm very proud of us for none of us saying golden showers.
Well, we almost
You just
made
ruined it.
So close.
But yeah, congrats to the Golden Palace for continuing on. Another reminder to everyone, again, go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to everywhere where you can subscribe to us, follow our social medias, rate, review, do all that stuff. We harp on it every week. Get in touch, message us. We like talking to you guys. We like knowing what shows you want to hear. It really helps us kind of form a show that you guys all enjoy listening to as much as we enjoy recording. S1E1 Pod on Twitter and Instagram most specifically. But that's it. That's all the time we have for this week. So listen in again next week for another new episode. We'll catch you then. Thanks, guys, for listening. Goodbye.
I think we got the best. I do declare.